October 1981. Ottaviano, a hill town east of Naples at the foot of Mount Vesuvius. Inside the Castello Mediceo, a 16th century Medici palace with 365 rooms, a tennis court, and a swimming pool, purchased by the Cutolo family and converted into the operational headquarters of the Nuova Camorra Organizzata. 15 of the most dangerous men in southern Italy are sitting around a table. The agenda is survival. A war is killing their members at a rate of 3 per week. At the head of the table sits a gray-haired woman in a plain cardigan, hands folded, saying almost nothing. The men in this room have ordered murders. They have survived prison, betrayal, and the kind of violence that most human beings encounter only in nightmares. They call her Uocchie e Ghiaccio, Ice Eyes. Police raid the castle before the meeting ends. Officers swarm through every gate. 14 men are arrested at the table. The woman at the head of the table is not among them. She escapes under a rug in a car driven past police checkpoints by the neighborhood priest. She will not be seen in public again for over 10 years. The organization she runs will not miss a single week of operation. Her name is Rosetta Cutolo, born January 1st, 1937, died October 14th, 2023. She was 86 years old. Most obituaries described her as the sister of a Camorra boss. According to the prosecutor who interrogated her more times than anyone in the Italian judicial system, she was the true force behind the NCO. She negotiated with South American cocaine cartels. She nearly blew up Naples police headquarters. She brokered a political hostage release so corrupt that the government lawyer who threatened to expose its details was murdered 3 days after speaking to a journalist. And she did all of it while the world looked at a gray-haired woman tending roses in a hill town and saw exactly what she intended them to see. How does a peasant's daughter from Ottaviano become the most powerful woman in the history of the Italian Camorra? And what is in the documents her brother threatened to release from prison? Documents the Italian state is still, 40 years later, reluctant to fully explain. Before we go further, if you're enjoying this story and want more like it, hit the like button and subscribe. Every video we make goes this deep, and there's a lot more coming. Ottaviano, Naples, 1941. Their father, Giuseppe Cutolo, is an agricultural laborer who has spent years working a field for a local landowner. One day, the landowner tells him the field will be repurposed, and his services are no longer needed. No negotiation, no compensation. In post-war Campania, a landowner's decision is not an invitation to discussion. Giuseppe has nowhere to turn except the local Camorra boss. The boss hears him out. Within days, the landowner reverses his decision. The contract is renewed. Giuseppe Cutolo dies in 1953. Raffaele is 12 years old. Rosetta is 16. She becomes at 16 the head of the household. She manages what little money there is. She watches Raffaele grow from a fatherless child into a volatile young man who has absorbed the same lesson their father's crisis taught. The state is a fiction. The Camorra is real. The law cannot help you. The boss can. In 1963, Raffaele shoots a man dead in an argument over a woman. He is 21 years old. Life sentence. He will spend the next 6 decades behind bars. The sister who raised him looks at the situation with cold clarity. Her brother is in prison. The organization he is building needs someone outside to run it. There is no one else. She does not go looking for the role. She steps into it because it is there, and because she is the only person equipped to fill it. Raffaele Cutolo finds the Nuova Camorra Organizzata inside Poggioreale prison. As a prisoner, he dresses impeccably, ties, designer shirts, a gold watch, shoes of crocodile skin. His daily meals consist of lobster and champagne. The Justice Department later discovers that between March 1981 and April 1982, he receives 55 million lire in money orders for daily expenses, half of which goes on food and clothes. He refers to Poggioreale as the state of Poggioreale. He is not joking. He builds the NCO the way charismatic men in confined spaces build empires. Through education, through ritual, through the specific kindness that means everything to a frightened young man arriving in prison with nothing. He teaches recruits to read. He writes poetry that becomes their Bible. He gives them identity and hierarchy and a sense that their suffering has a purpose. Rosetta administers all of it from outside. She coordinates extortion rackets, drug trafficking, and alliances from their base at the Castello Mediceo in Ottaviano. She manages inflows from NCO-affiliated activities and directs funds toward armed operations, legal defense for incarcerated members, and the mesete monthly payments to the families of detained men. The mesete is not a luxury. In a region where the Italian state provides almost nothing to families whose breadwinners are imprisoned, they are the difference between eating and not eating. Rosetta pays them on time, every time. She understands that financial loyalty is the only loyalty that survives a crisis. She is brilliant with figures. She negotiates directly with South American cocaine cartels. She cultivates the politicians and officials whose cooperation the NCO needs to control public works contracts. She mediates internal disputes before they become internal murders. She never marries. This is not sacrifice. It is architecture. A husband would introduce competing loyalties, divide authority, give rivals a pressure point. She remains singular, structurally invulnerable, in ways that a married woman in the organization could never have been. The men around her largely refuse to see what she is. Former NCO lieutenant and state witness Pasquale Barra dismisses her entirely. What has Rosa Cutolo got to do with it? What have women got to do with the Camorra? That contempt is operationally useful to her. Men who cannot see her cannot testify accurately to what she actually does. April 27th, 1981. The Red Brigades kidnap 60-year-old Christian Democrat politician Ciro Cirillo and kill his two-man escort in the garage of his Naples apartment building. At the time, Cirillo directs reconstruction efforts in Campania following the devastating 1980 Irpinia earthquake, which means he controls the flow of billions of lire in rebuilding contracts. 3 years earlier, the Red Brigades kidnapped Aldo Moro, former prime minister, the most important politician in post-war Italian history. The government took an immediate public position. The state does not negotiate with terrorists. They held it. Moro spent 55 days writing increasingly desperate letters from captivity. He was murdered. Now, with Cirillo, the Italian government makes a completely different calculation. DC politician Antonio Gava and his associates contact the NCO with a view to using their standing with the Red Brigades to secure Cirillo's release. The Italian state, which publicly refused to negotiate with terrorists over the life of a former prime minister, is secretly asking the Camorra to do it on their behalf. A summit meeting is called in Rome. The NCO is represented by Rosetta Cutolo and Vincenzo Casillo. Representatives of the Sicilian Mafia are also present. She sits across from the most powerful criminal organizations in Italy and carries the full authority of the NCO's imprisoned founder. In return for negotiating Cirillo's release, Raffaele Cutolo demands a slackening of police operations against the Camorra, control over the tendering of building contracts in Campania, and a reduction of his own sentence. Cirillo is released after 89 days on July 25, 1981, against payment of a ransom of 1.5 billion lire. The Italian state has negotiated with the Camorra over a politician's life, granted a convicted murderer sentence concessions, and handed a criminal organization control over billions in reconstruction contracts. Rosetta Cutolo is the woman who sat at the table where all of this was agreed. But Raffaele has miscalculated. By demonstrating that the NCO can deliver what the Italian state cannot, he has made every political protector who used him desperate to destroy him before he can use what he knows. Raffaele's former political protectors turn and throw their support to his main rival, Carmine Alfieri. The Nuova Famiglia, an anti-NCO confederation of rival clans, now has government backing and police intelligence. On January 14, 1983, Vincenzo Casillo, Raffaele's primary military chief and Rosetta's co-representative at the Rome summit, is killed by a car bomb in Naples. It is clear that Cutolo has lost the war. Between June 16th and 19th, 1983, police arrest 1,000 members of the NCO in a single operation. Rosetta keeps what remains alive. She moves between safe houses in multiple cities. She is reported to travel repeatedly to South America to maintain drug supply arrangements. She pays the Mossad through 11 years as a fugitive because she understands that financial loyalty is the only loyalty that survives catastrophe. Then, the detail this story cannot end without. Raffaele Cutolo, from his prison cell, orders the assassination of a man named Giuseppe Romano for conducting a relationship with his sister. Romano and his son Antonio are both killed. The man who built the most powerful Camorra organization in Italian history, who negotiated with politicians and terrorist groups and intelligence services, murders his sister's companion, not for operational reasons, but for family honor. In the middle of a war that he is losing, Rosetta never publicly acknowledged the killing. She never acknowledged anything. February 8, 1993, Ottaviano, dawn. Police find her hideout, a house in Ottaviano where she has been living after 11 years, moving across safe houses in multiple cities and countries. Officers surround the building. She appears at the entrance. "I am tired of being a fugitive." She is 56 years old. She walks out not because she is caught. She walks out because she has decided to. Raffaele is transferred to the prison island of Asinara, isolated, cut off from Naples, placed under the 41B's hard detention regime that restricts all communication. Without Rosetta outside, without the ability to communicate, the NCO eventually dissolves. She serves her sentence. She is released. She returns to Ottaviano. She tends her roses. She attends Mass, gray-haired and pious-looking, the kind of woman you forget the moment she passes you on the street. In October 1993, the same month as her surrender, Raffaele's lawyer Enrico Madonna is murdered, shot 3 days after telling a journalist he is prepared to tell a parliamentary commission everything he knows about the Cirillo negotiations. The lawyer who knew what happened is dead. Before his own death in prison on February 17, 2021, Raffaele Cutolo said of the documents from the Cirillo affair, "We had documents to use against politicians for the facts of the negotiation. Some were held by Vincenzo Casillo, later killed in the war. I have other documents, but they will die with me." He dies. The documents, if they ever existed, die with him. Rosetta Cutolo, who sat at the Rome summit, who ran the empire for 15 years from outside and 11 more as a fugitive, dies on October 14, 2023, having never told anyone, in any courtroom, in any interview, in any recorded conversation, a single thing she did not choose to say. Prosecutor Antonio Laudati, who questioned her more times than anyone, her brother has always been under the power of her forceful personality. Two versions of Rosetta Cutolo exist, the one her brother maintained, the devoted sister who passed messages and served coffee, and the one the prosecutor who spent years questioning her arrived at. One of them is convenient. One of them is true. The Camorra that Rosetta Cutolo held together operated through extortion, drugs, and construction contracts. Violence kept deliberately invisible behind a gray-haired woman tending roses. In the same decade, a different kind of crime was being committed in a marble building in Milan, entirely legally in broad daylight, by men with government connections, Vatican relationships, and a Masonic lodge providing cover for all of it. When the Banco Ambrosiano collapsed in 1982, it took with it a prime minister, a central banker found hanging under Blackfriars Bridge in London with bricks in his pockets, and a Vatican official claiming diplomatic immunity. The money that disappeared has never been fully accounted for. The people responsible were never fully prosecuted, and the institution that provided their cover is still operating today. That story is next.